Welcome to A New Way to Museum. I'm Brad Pinka, Manager of Visitor Services here at Sternberg Museum, and today's edition we're calling Post-Rock Country. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about this very strange region in the central part of Kansas that's known as Post-Rock Country. First of all, I'm going to give you a little bit of geology information about Kansas. I'm going to do very little of this because I'm not a geologist and I get myself in really big trouble really quick. But for those of you who have been through Kansas, you might think Kansas is a great big flat space, but actually it's not. Kansas has a pretty good slope to it. If you can kind of see the model we have right here. Actually, the elevations of Kansas slope from the very lowest part about down here in the southeast part of Kansas is 679 feet above sea level, all the way up to what we call Mount Sunflower, which is 4,039 feet. But I wouldn't get out my climbing gear just yet because Mount Sunflower isn't much more than just a hill out in the middle of a prairie with a nice sign on it. So in this area of Kansas, in this great sloping area, there's a lot of different geological formations. And one of them that is kind of distinctive to the central region of Kansas is called Greenhorn Limestone. And it outcrops in an area, looks kind of like this. Kind of runs from about Ford County up to the Nebraska line in Republic County. And in that area is a very unique formation at the very top of the Greenhorn Limestone. It's called Fence Post Limestone. I'll show you some graphics on that, but it sits right at the top. It's a marker bed that kind of defines the very top layer of the Fence Post Limestone. When settlers first started coming out to this country, and they found out Kansas was pretty much a great big empty space. There weren't very many trees. There wasn't a whole lot of anything out here to build homes. As the homesteaders were coming out, especially with the Homestead Act, and they came out to Kansas, started trying to set up a new place to live, there really wasn't a lot of wood or anything that they could build their structures out of. So they started looking for something to use. And they found in this region of Kansas this outcropping, and it sets, usually about 18 inches or less below the surface of the ground. And some places, as I said, in this region that was called Post-Rock Country, it actually outcrops, so it's right there visible. The illustration you see here actually shows you the Fence Post Limestone bed is a very distinctive layer. What also made it very unique for the settlers and for people wanting to use it for construction is it's very consistent in thickness, about 12 inches in thickness, give or take a few inches, but that made it, I guess I'm going to use the term loosely, somewhat easy to quarry. And all they had to do, they would uncover the overburden, clean the soil off of it, open up that layer of limestone. As I said, it was very consistent in thickness, so really all they had to worry about was cutting their widths and their lengths. As far as quarrying the stone, limestone's been used in construction for thousands of years, literally, so we pretty much know the purpose of them. I mean, we know that limestone is used, or any kind of stone is used in construction. But one of the peculiarities of this region is the fence posts that people quarried. And actually, I brought a cardboard fence post. I'm not strong enough to pick up the real thing. These are about 6 foot tall in real life, so this is kind of scaled down a little bit. And they're about 300 pounds a piece. But the limestone, this particular layer of stone, was used to make fence posts because as I said, there was very little wood out here in this part of the country, and they had to find what they could and use what they had. So they would quarry this. A lot of people tell me one of the things I've experienced when talking to people about the post-rock limestone is whoever came up with the idea of making a fence post out of this stone. Somebody somewhere along the line had to decide, I'm going to take these flat stones, turn it up on an end, put a piece of wire on it, make a fence out of it. It's amazing how many times we've ever had tours with people and they'll come up and say, well, my grandpa was the first person that ever built a limestone fence out in this part of the country. Unfortunately, I don't know if most of them are right. We have discovered what's known as the first post rock fence, or fence made out of the fence post limestone, is right about the Lake Wilson area, and there is a marker out in that area, so if you're ever out in that area you can cruise around and see if you can find it. But in order to quarry the limestone, grab some of my illustrations here, sorry. In order to quarry the limestone, they had several different tools that they would use, but the first and most important thing is they would uncover it, as I said, then they would drill a hole in it, and you can see on the models here resemblances of drill marks, or even on here. They drilled a hole about halfway through the formation. They placed a device called feathers and wedges, and this was just two pieces of metal rounded on one side, flat on the other. They drove a wedge between the two. They would set these in the hole, set a row of these along a hole along the stone, then take some type of a mallet, drive the wedge into the hole. And what's really unique about this is the quarriers that are really experienced in this can tell by the tone when the limestone is ready to split. What they would do is they would drive this down, they would hear a certain tone, and then get them all tuned to that same tone, and then the next time they hit one of them, the stone just popped along the side. To identify the limestone, well, let me show you, I've got an illustration coming up I'll bring up here for you of limestone quarry. This is kind of gives you an illustration of how the stone works, and we'll try to bring those up to you on the screen, but the feathers and wedges are run along the line, and then, as I said, once it's split apart, then the stones are moved by hand to the location that they were going to quarry. And if you think about this, as I said, these are about 300 pounds a piece. Well, if they used them for building stones, they'd sometimes cut them down to about a 2-foot piece. But anytime they moved these stones, they would roll them aside, put a rope or something like that underneath it, some type of a strap, back their wagon over that stone, pick that stone up, hoist it beneath at the bottom of the wagon, take the wagon, drive out into the field, in the field where they'd already dug the hole for the post, set the post by the hole, drop it down, pull the wagon out of the way, stand the post up into the hole. Imagine doing this, spacing fence posts for about a half a mile, depending on how far you wanted to space them, and which depended on what you had, what you wanted to try to contain. Just think about doing this all day long. It took a long time and a lot of effort to do this. The same way with buildings. Most of the stones that were quarried for the buildings were done one at a time. This way, they were smaller stones, as they could load a few into the wagon, pick up the stone, haul it to the destination, use horses and whatever other, or horsepower or manpower, hoist these stones up, stack them one at a time to build some of these magnificent old buildings. Going back to talk about a little bit about something unique about the fence post limestone is if you're ever out trying to look and trying to figure out if you can find it, first of all, as I said, it outcrops, it's very distinct, but one unique thing about the fence post is the brown streak. And that is like an iron deposit, but the brown streak kind of sets the fence post limestone aside from any of the other types of stone. It also kind of helps to distinguish where the stone was quarried, as it becomes more distinct as you move up towards the northeast. If you get towards the southeast part of the country, the brown streak is very not well defined, as I said, as it moves up. So you can even look at the stones and kind of get a fair idea of where it was quarried. Pictured here is another, show you an image of a quarry in Russell County, Kansas. This is around the turn of the century, about 1911. And one of the things we'll talk about with the stone real quickly is when it's used in buildings, there's very unique methods of dressing the stone so that you can have different, depending upon what your situation is. Showing the dressing styles on this illustration, there's rough hewn, which is basically take the stone, cut it out of the quarry, stack it up, stick it together with some type of mortar, call it good. There is a quarry facing, which gives it a little bit more carving, a little bit more distinction. Hammered face, which gives it a little more dressing, and a pitched face, which actually kind of carves the outside of the stone so that the stone kind of sticks out. To do the hammer facing, they'd use tools like this, a little bit of a rough edge, kind of give it a dressing. There's either a chisel that you can do it with, or you can do it with the actual dressing hammer. You want to do a smoother face, they'd have pretty typical looking smooth chisel, which you just smooth off the stone. Same way with kind of giving the pitch face, they'd kind of cut around the edges, kind of round it off a little bit so that the stone sticks out. One of the unique tools that I ever have seen is this thing called a stone crandle. This was used for dressing the stones, giving it that kind of hammer face look. But what's cool about this one is this has a little bit of a unknown trivia. A particular crandle like this was used by Carrie Nation, if you ever heard about her, when she went around and started breaking up the stills in Wichita, Kansas, and all the way up into Topeka. She used one of these to do her damage to the bars. So the stone crandle kind of got to be a little more famous in a little bit different way than the original settlers would have imagined. So that pretty much wraps up most of the talk. If you're wanting to learn a little bit more, there is lots of sources out there. There's a couple of books. Post-rock country you can pick up in the library. Also, Land of the Post-rock gives a good history of the geology, some of the background, and lots of other just general geologic publications. Or there's also, you can check on our website. We have a new organization that's kind of helping to promote tourism and to promote the history of this, called Kansas Post-rock Limestone Coalition in Kansas. So you can check all that out. Do what you can. If you're really interested in more, do your research. It's on the internet. It's all over the place. Thank you very much for joining me today. I hope you learned a little bit in our brief story about Land of the Post-rock and post-rock country in Kansas. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us in A New Way to Museum with the Sternberg Museum of Natural History. If you enjoyed this video, like it and subscribe to our channel. Hit the bell for notifications when we release a new video. Support us on Patreon for early access and exclusive content. You can also follow us on all our social media. Links are found in the description. Thanks for watching, and follow your curiosity to new discoveries.